Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Welcome to this session today. It is an absolute pleasure to host this celebration and this exciting partnership that we are talking about today. My name is Ed Stevenette, and I lead on international youth engagement initiatives at Learning Planet Institute. We're based in Paris. We explore really how we can shape learning to support making learners not best in the world, but best for the world. So we do programs here in Paris and with partners around the world, many of which are here in the room today. We are in the midst of our annual Learning Planet Festival with hundreds of events taking place around the world. And it leads me to say, actually, a happy International Day of Education to everybody here in the call today. Thank you for celebrating it with us today. You will be able, and Francois will share in a moment, a little bit more about what's been happening this week with over 700 events around the world, thousands of participants. As you can see, we've got many as well in person in Paris. They can give a little wave as well if they can hear. Wonderful. And so there we go. They'll be sharing in a little moment. But then so many of you as well around the world online, and we thank you for joining us today. This session will look at student leadership and really shaping the future of learning. And indeed, what we see here on the International Day of Education, we came yesterday from UNESCO with the theme looking at students co-creating the future of learning. And so for us here today and at LPI, what's absolutely crucial is how we see every student has a role to play in shaping the education that they want to see. I will be speaking very little because we're giving the floor to a wonderful set of speakers from the Learning Planet Institute and Global Student Forum community, especially young people that make up this community. And we're also delighted to have those in person from Jade Bowder's community who'll be sharing in a short moment. But first, what I'd love to do is to give the floor to Francois from Learning Planet Institute, and then to Jakob, the Executive Director of Global Student Forum, to share a little bit about why we are working together to bring student leadership to the heart of education. So, Francois, I give the floor to you first.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks. It's great. Happy International Day of Education to all of you. It's great to be together today. And, the Learning Planet Institute was co-designed by students for students. So if those that are in the room that you see find it nice, it's because students made this space. We started 20 years ago, so we're just celebrating our 20th anniversary. And we were very happy to launch the Learning Planet Festival in 2020, and so the 7th event is happening now. And the first time it was only one room full in UNESCO. Now it's thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands coming from all over the world as we speak. And so thanks for you for being with us. Everything we do, we try to co-design it with you. And so we are very proud to be with the Global Student Forum today, because they are also advocating for co-designing with youth at all scale, from the local university all the way to the planetary. And the Learning Planet Institute started very local, and now we became last year a UNESCO center on one side, and also UN University Hub. And we probably will come back to that because we have the pleasure, I think, Serena in the call with us. The UNU Hub that we co-design with our friends like Serena is there to, is called FLY, for the future of learning with youth. How can we co-design the future of learning with youth? So that's the very center of what we try to do, and the center of the session that we have here. And also Thursday, we launched what we call now the Learning Planet Academy, in presence of we had contribution from the UN University Rector. We had the ADG for Education, Stefania Giannini. We had Felipe Polier, who was with Assistant Secretary General for Youth, and many young people and many partners were with us in the room. Actually, the best questions and opening was by a 16-year-old. That is quite impressive already. And so we are basically trying to see how can we co-design hopeful futures. Because, if you open the news, it's hard not to feel somewhat hopeless. So, can we come together and try to together do things we could not do alone? And so in this co-design, one of the things we announced on Thursday is not only the Learning Planet Academy, where we want to co-design the best way to learn to be the best for the world, not the best in the world, as Ed was saying. And we want students to learn to care for self, others, and the planet. And we want them to learn to take care of their mental health and well-being, about peace and democracy, and also about climate and sustainability. So those are the main topics that we want to cover in the Learning Planet Academy, because too often they are not well treated in local schools or local universities. And so we want to provide this open framework for every student that want to discover these topics, want to discover their emotions in relation to these topics, want to ideate, want to build projects, and want to have impact and share what they've done with local and planetary communities simultaneously. So that's the aim of the Learning Planet Academy. We also would like to co-design it as much as we can with students. So one of the experiments we've done last year was what we call Remodel UN experiments. So we use the Model UN framework that I guess many of you know, where students are invited to be ambassadors of various countries. And we invited them to tell us what sort of student charter we should have for the Learning Planet Academy. And we got hundreds of students across the world that all contributed. We had tens of pages of propositions. We use collective intelligence and artificial intelligence to synthesize it. And so we know we'll put that in practice in the coming days and months. And we want to repeat this exercise. We want to co-design diploma, for instance. What would be a planetary baccalaureate, or a planetary PhD, or a planetary bachelor, or a planetary master? Or at least, how can we upgrade existing diplomas and invite students to tell us what sorts of things they want to do? And so we can have a global conversation on this that is fed by every local perspective, but we can also invite the local perspective to take into account that global conversation, so that there is more power for the local students that says it's not just a local conversation, it's a planetary conversation that has local instances. And so, we can this way go from the local to the planetary and vice versa, and strengthen each other. And that's why we're so happy that, we have a Global Student Forum and Jacob, especially today, to lead this together. Jacob?
I couldn't have said it much better. I think it's very clear that we are living in a time of enormous amounts of crisis and conflicts and tensions. And education is the one core driver that we know always works. It's the one enabler that always makes it possible for young people to have access to opportunities to shape their lives, but also shape their communities. So I think in the Global Student Forum, the partnership with the Learning Planet Institute was very, very straightforward. We bring together student organizations from across the world. They're now member organizations in 137 countries and territories, and these are both in primary, higher secondary education and higher education. They're from many different kinds of discipline. They are classic student unions. They are thematic student organizations who have a focus on sustainability or rights or gender equality, or they are student organizations with a focus on specific disciplines. They are all led by students. They are all coming together in the belief that students have the right to education that is quality, that can enable them for a future that is better, and that they have a voice in shaping that. So when we started talking to the Learning Planet Institute and Francois some time ago now, that it was very clear that there was a lot of aligning ambitions and a lot of possibility to bring together the constituency that we have in the Global Student Forum with thousands of student organizations across the world, with the methodology and the programmatic initiatives that you have in LPI that are so clear and trying to solve some of the most pressing challenges of our time. And one of the biggest challenges that we have been fighting for so long is, how do you make sure that you can actually bridge the local with the global? So as you know, that GSF, we spend a lot of time on bringing student organizations together, and we spend a lot of time on trying to make sure that the voices of students are heard in global decision-making spaces. But that is so far away from students. And how do you actually bring that perspective from so many different communities and so many different lived realities into something that is tangible and works in global spaces? So I think for us, it was very, very clear that using the kind of innovative mechanisms and programs that you have in LPI was a very kind of good strategy for it. So I think we are looking ahead to something that's very, very ambitious, but also something that's absolutely needed. And I think now, after the last few days here in Paris, yesterday, I had the pleasure of joining the launch of the youth report of the UNESCO. So UNESCO had just launched a youth report mapping and outlining the challenges and recommendations for how to overcome the challenges, for how to involve young people and students in the future of education. And that data set is something that I'm so much looking forward to building on. And I think we have so many things that are now just starting to align and just starting to come together that I'm quite excited about.
Thanks so much, Jakob. Thank you, Francois, as well. And indeed, this comes over the past few days. We've brought together, been part of sessions in person and online with thousands now around the world, but particularly closely with Global Student Forum and also UN colleagues in the United Nations Youth Office, in UNESCO, and really grateful that Serena from the United Nations University family can also be here too, as you can see, as we try to connect the pieces of how we can work together to shape the future of learning with youth. And we're really delighted, before we go into hearing from a couple of the members from the Learning Planet youth community and the Global Student Forum community, as well as Serena, to hear from Jade's community, Jade Bowler, who are in the this small screen, well, very, very big, lots of people waving now. And so they have just been going through a workshop as part of the Learning Planet Festival that I won't say any more about. I'll give the floor to the group to share and how it's relevant to thinking about the future of learning with youth. So over to you guys.
Hi everyone, can you hear us okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, then I'll wave. It's so lovely to see so many of you around the world. We also have a very international room. We have people from all over the world, and we've been doing a workshop about the future of education. So we've been doing some guided reflection about our own experiences at school, things that we loved, maybe things we didn't love as much. And we also did a guided exercise asking, what is the most important thing that we've learned in our lives? Like in our entire lives, not just in school, what is the most important lesson that we've learned? And then using those reflections to rethink how we can design school subjects that maybe can teach that skill. And I would love to open the floor to people around me to share some of those reflections and some of the subjects that they came up with that they'd love to see in school.
Yes, so I can start. Hello everyone, so nice to see you. So to the first question, what is the biggest thing we learned? I talked to many people, and we could kind of cluster this into two big things. On one hand, agency, on the other hand, emotions. So I think on one hand, the agency is quite variable. Like, it's about cultivating your own joy, it's about creating meaning, it's about political agency as well, like understanding that you can actually change something if you organize yourself with others. And we feel in school this is sometimes lacking, as you're more passive, you just absorb all the knowledge, but how do you actually go into action with this, like bridging this knowledge action gap? And emotions is more about that. In school we often feel that there's maybe shame around emotions. It's more about just having factual knowledge and maybe you don't really learn how to deal with heavy emotions that you will experience during puberty or also later, like grief, and also like, for example, learning how to communicate non-violently. And out of this, we then created a subject, and we called it, because emotional agency should play in, empowerment and social skills. And this subject, should kind of not only happen in this fixed pattern, but there should be space for students to get feedback, and the teacher should be like, should create use a bit more creative versions, like it's role playing and theater, so that you can have different perspectives. And we also said that grades, like the assessment grade, is probably not very useful here, but more we should base the progress measurement on self-reflection and also feedback, like self-reflection and feedback from peer to peer, but also from the teacher to the students. If anyone wants to add something, I think this is all I have so far. Yeah, and we also said it would be important to have smaller groups maybe than we're used to in high school, because when you share these emotions, it's very important to have time and to like actively listen, and then it's important to have a more intimate space.
Wonderful.
Maybe we could do one more.
Yeah, go for it.
Hello everyone, I hope you can hear me well. So I will share like kind of a big idea. And I noticed today one pattern is that we talked a lot about people and connections between people, that this is an important thing for us. And I think that we can observe a new like demand for education, not to teach us just hard skills, not to teach us just knowledge, but to cultivate our humanity and like to teach us how to be more human. I don't know, something like this, including empathy, emotions, reflection, acceptance. And we spoke a lot about the significance and importance of hearing and truly listening to each other, because we are all human and we all share like one humankind. We all share our humanity. But we came up with a lot of different forms and solutions, like how we can embrace it. But there is a big obstacle in lacking of incentives for governments and for schools to change it, because if they will not show like great exam results or something like that, they will not get fundings, etc. So I believe our task now and the task for policymakers to think what can we create, how we can change and solve this dilemma. So yeah, I think that's my conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was wonderful. And I think it positions this session really well, because you've had these few hours to dive deeply into thinking about education futures as well. And we'll make sure also to put into the chat the link to Jade's Instagram and community. And as you'll see, there are thousands of young people around the world following and sharing some amazing perspectives on education. And so huge thank you as well, Jade, for being such an amazing part of the festival for this year as well. And it positions, as I say, perfectly what we'll be discussing now with some of the examples from the Global Student Forum and Learning Planet Institute on how we're thinking about student leadership and the future of learning. So first, it's a pleasure to give the floor back to Jakob and Anika Joshi from the Global Student Forum to share a little bit more on their initiatives placing and advocating for student leadership and empowerment. So Jakob and Anika, over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the great inputs from the session in the room. It was really nice to hear that, because it's also those kind of conversations that we need, because a lot of times students are not having the kind of conversations about what they would like to learn, how they would like to shape their education. They know it because they feel it and they experience it every day of their life, but kind of sitting together in a structured way and saying, okay, how do we solve this? How do we get over these challenges. That's the kind of conversation that I hope many, many more students across the world can start to have. And I think for me and for us in the Global Student Forum, the question is, how do we make sure that this can also be something that can navigate the many, many different kinds of realities that people are facing, because there's so many challenges out there. So I will talk a little bit about the challenges and that we're seeing in our time right now, and my colleague Annika will also share some of the priorities that we have been setting in the global student movement, because we have been trying to come together and synthesize all the different perspectives from across our membership about what are the things that are making it difficult to access education, to be a young person, to, if you get much closer, it will be terrible. What are the things that we need to overcome? So I think we are, as I said before, we're living in very much in changing times, in times where a lot of the kind of international institutions that we had taken for given for many years are being challenged. We are seeing extreme and severe underfunding of education across the world. We are seeing student protest being cracked down on in many, many places. And only in a few of these places do we actually hear about it. So as you can see, the kind of conversation that we want to have, the conversation that you had in the room earlier today, those are the kind of conversations we need to have. But there are so many students right now who are trying to have them, who are trying to express the challenges that they see, but they are being pushed down, they're being limited. So we need to address a much kind of broader range of issues to actually deal with this. So my colleague Annika, would you like to come in on and talk a little bit about all of this that we are seeing out in the world today?
Yeah, thank you, Jakob. And hi, everyone. I hope you can see me and hear me all right. Yeah, perfect. All right. The thing is, when we talk about student leadership today, it is important to recognize that students are organizing in a world which is shaped by overlapping crises. So, as Jacob mentioned, I'll be talking a little bit about our strategic priorities. For GSF, our strategic priorities span over democratic student representation and governance, education as a public good, social and climate justice, peace and human rights, and strengthening global student solidarity and their organizing capacity. Taken together, these priorities reflect a clear understanding that education systems cannot be reformed in isolation from the political, economic, and environmental realities students are living through. I'm so sorry. I am at the archives right now, and apparently I cannot speak very loudly. I am sorry, so I hope you can hear me all right. But just to continue, what matters is not just naming these priorities, but how we actually aim to achieve them. Through strengthening national and regional student unions and coordinating them globally, GSF is building an infrastructure which allows students to engage in institutions as political actors rather than as passive stakeholders. This is how democratic governance in education becomes possible beyond just individual campuses. There are two issues which have become very personal to me over my years of being a student advocate, and they are education justice and climate justice. We cannot talk about sustainability, green transitions, or future skills if large sections of the world's youth are locked out of education altogether. Climate justice is not only an environmental issue, it is a social one. Communities most affected by climate change are often those with least access to quality education, stable incomes, or political power. GSF's approach recognizes that without access to education or economic security, calls for climate action risk become abstract and exclusionary. This is why student movements today, if you've noticed, are becoming increasingly intersectional. Students are not asking about how education prepares them for the future, but whose future are being protected in the first place. As for the future of student leadership, student movements today operate in an environment of precarity. Being from a Commonwealth country myself, I can say that there are many students who are balancing rising living costs, debt, insecure work alongside their studies. Yet, despite this, we are seeing students step into governance spaces, policy dialogues, and global coalitions with increasing sophistication. Leadership today is less about visibility and more about building durable structures that outlast individual campaigns. Ultimately, student leadership in this time and age is about recognizing a simple truth. We cannot create meaningful change if young people, the future leaders of tomorrow, are standing on the sidelines when there's decisions being made for their very future. The work of Global Student Forum shows that when students organize collectively across borders, they are not only responding to crises, but actively reshaping the systems that produce them. I am sure that the conversations which have taken place in the room earlier today and that will take place in the future will reflect those priorities, and we can find a way to come together to create a better future for all of us together.
Thank you so much, Annika. And we've been speaking with Jakob and other Global Student Forum colleagues over the past days about how this has really been put to action more than ever in the past year with what's been happening in students challenging the system, notably what has happened in Nepal, in Bangladesh, in the US as well, and GSF, as we've seen, has a critical role in being able, as a kind of an antenna, being able to represent the voices of so many youth as well. Jakob, was there any final point you wanted to add to that?
Not at all. I think it was very clear. I think we are really painting a picture of the complexity of all of this. Like, we know where we want to go, but there's also so many dimensions we need to consider. But I think already we're kind of like, we're streamlining, we're putting it together, we are like making it tangible, because I think we make it a little bit more tangible every time we have this conversation, then we can actually start dealing with it. And I know that there are so many students out there who want to change things in the world and in their communities, but they're just overwhelmed by the enormity of the challenge. So I think like painting this picture of the world that we have to navigate is something we need to do together, because then we can actually go there together. So back to you, Ed.
Thanks so much, Jakob. And we will also add into the chat as well some of the links for how you can engage. Annika, don't hesitate to do so as well, of how you can engage with GSF on a local and international level as well, because it is really timely work too. And coming as well to LPI, and you can see why there's such a connection. We've been looking now since the inception of the Institute on how you can co-design learning programs, the building in Paris designed with youth, initiatives that go beyond our four walls to support learning for a sustainable and flourishing planet. And one of these key initiatives is the Learning Planet Youth Design Challenge that GSF has been with us since the beginning on, where we started asking 2 years ago a simple question of what would be and what is your educational project to try and transform and support the future of learning. And so last year we had from 1,000 sign-ups around the world, we had 270 brilliant projects and learning programs submitted, and we'll be hearing shortly from Arpita from this year's cohort a little bit more about her work. But just to note that it was only last week that we closed the submissions this year, and we had nearly 3,500 signing up, so a huge increase with over 700 final projects submitted from over 100 countries around the world. And these projects will be fully open and available to discover and learn more about and to connect with as well. And we're going through the process now of selecting a finalist cohort of 60 who will be supported in refining their project proposals before the jury have the hard task of selecting 12 ambassadors for this programme in June. And so we have Jade, who is part of the jury. We also have colleagues of Jakob and Anika from Global Student Forum who are part of the jury. Serena from UNU is also part of the jury. And so this is really made possible through organisations coming together to try to spotlight, identify and support brilliant youth-led initiatives to shape the future of learning. So we'll also add a link for you to discover more about that in the chat, but it's best to give the floor to one of the participants in this initiative, the wonderful Arpita, to share more about her initiative, Colour Me In, and how she sees the role of student leadership in the future of learning. So Arpita, I'll give you the floor once you've settled into your space. And perhaps if you have a light to turn on, we might be able to see you. There we go. Perfect. Arpita, over to you.
I apologize for that. Now I'm back. Thank you so much, Ed, for the very kind introduction and introducing just the competition and the aspects. And it's been so inspiring to listen from everyone because I deeply am moved by the ideas within the education space, and it really empowers me to see that I'm not the only one who feels that way. Initially, when I stepped into the education space, I was like, oh, it's too much and I'm only one person. How will we navigate that space? But when I saw the community last year and I saw how much change is possible, it just really inspired me. For me, my project was around color and skin color specifically. It revolved around the ideas of how, especially in the Indian context, there are lots of discriminations with respect to that. And I felt like I really wanted to bring some voice in whatever form, or at least some form of awareness, because it becomes very difficult for people who don't even know about it. Through the last year's mentorship, people that I met over time, becoming a finalist was a surprise. I felt it was such a nice platform to put my work out, to become more confident that yes, there are more people who believe in such things, to get that support, to get that mentorship, to not only think of my project as my project in a small space and a small community, but think of it as a global aspect. I was able to share it with tons of people. I'm sharing it with tons of people right now. I think that deeply drives my, like, I don't know, that I'm lack of words is just so overwhelming and so great that I'm able to do that. I also think that it was such a nice space to share with people, and there were lots of people who there were things that I probably was doing in a very small scale, and I was like, oh, this can turn into an entire business idea, which can be expanded in so many ways. And those things just sparked lots of lights for myself. And listening to everyone today, it's sort of a poly crisis that's going on, and we cannot solve everything as individuals. But when there's a community, it really becomes a shared and a collective aspect of, yeah, there's one person more that I can ask for help, and they're going to be there. Especially people in education, we feel we're isolated. We stick to one place and we're like, oh, yeah, it's too much. How do I do? But then it's just accessing these small aspects and taking help and resting as an aspect as well, that it can be very overwhelming in all of these things. Ask for help, take rest in those spaces as well. And I think just keep inspiring one another, because that's what's kept me driving. I'm not as young as so many people that I see here, but also I see that I was someone who was really shy, but was able to bloom because of lots of aspects. And then also I can see some parts of my future where I know I can access support and help. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arpita. And that was a wonderful reminder that you shared on needing the space for calm as we're looking for how we can engage and act on a global stage that focusing on the self as well, I think has always been something you've carried very strongly in our community. So thank you so much for that, and for representing what we're trying to do with the Youth Design Challenge, which now gives an opportunity to give the floor to yourself, Serena Kuredsi, who has the challenging role of digesting so many of these inspiring ideas. So Serena, you would share from a bit more on UNU and our work together and what you've gathered from what you've heard today.
Thank you so much, Edward. So first of all, greetings here from South Africa. So for me, it's really, really nice to see the diversity of countries that are presented here. Of course, I have a soft spot for everybody from Africa or Southern Africa, because I am from Southern Africa and I'm actually here in South Africa today. So thanks for GSF and LPI for creating this global forum. Today, somebody said today every conversation takes us one step closer. So this global conversation today takes us one step closer to making a change. So I think that's really, really important. And the thing that I would also like people to remember, this is, well, let me share greetings from our director, Edel Günther at UNU Flores. She really, and I also buy into this, making education not the best in the world, but the best for the world. And I think this global student community and student leadership conversation is part of that, making education for the world and for the future, and for everybody who is in education who will be part of the future. Our rector, maybe he did say that on Thursday, he loves to say that, Prof. Mawala, he's also a fellow South African. Education is a human right. I think there was also talk today about the right to education. And if you think about, you will probably have Googled what Nelson Mandela said, is that education is a much stronger weapon than anything else. So here also, I want to encourage this global conversation to continue, because I think through this conversation and through education, you can really change the world. I like the themes that we heard about, the mental health, peace and democracy, and environment. These are the issues. I mean, I have children who are in their 20s. These are the issues that bother them. This is what they worry about in the future. So already you can see that strong co-design element with the younger generation of focusing on the issues that are important to them. I liked so much about the agency and the soft skills, and I understand the barrier. So we always have to submit grades. As a professor, I taught as a professor at the South African University for many years. So this is the thing that at the end you have to submit. But to me, the irony is in this year, in this age of artificial intelligence, the oral exam is becoming so much more important again. And this soft skill of arguing and presenting your ideas, even though we have all these very powerful tools, is suddenly becoming very relevant again. So I think that call for not only knowing the hard knowledge, a lot of this knowledge these days we can get from the artificial intelligence, but being creative with that knowledge that we find in ChatGPT or whatever. This is what a machine can never do. A machine cannot be creative. It cannot take that next step. So I think also this call for soft skills is very timely at this stage of the game. I made some notes here. Let me see. So one thought that struck me, and this was also very interesting for me. So I spent all my life in South Africa, and 18 months ago, I came to Germany to join the United Nations University Institute in Dresden. And here people are talking about universities having fewer students. And this was really a surprise to me, because I come from South Africa, where we're still overflowing and flooded by students. So maybe in the global conversation, you can also think about that. This could be an opportunity or something to take note of, that universities here are challenged with having fewer students, whereas universities in other parts of the world are challenged with having too many students. So if one could bring these together, and especially in this online environment, maybe there are some opportunities to do that. I think the global student community is really, really powerful. Somebody mentioned now Bangladesh. There's also what we saw in other countries. So talking to each other, joining each other, connecting to each other, and then through the Learning Planet Institute, through the Global Student Forum, channeling this feedback and this co-design into the United Nations, UNESCO, United Nations University. I think this is really important and I think really powerful. So in the same way that we saw nationally this conversation in this community in certain countries, I think globally you can have that same effect. And lastly, I think also if we don't only think about changing the institutions and changing the world, what Apita mentioned is you often need a peer. You need somebody who's in the same situation as you. Sometimes you find that person locally, but these days with internet and all the global communications, you can connect to people in other countries who feel the same like you. And through this, you can get that support and understand that somebody else is in the same situation as you. So I really like this becoming then a global world where we support each other. So one final word maybe also about our institute. The United Nations Institute is a global university. We have a headquarters in Tokyo. Our institute is in Dresden. We focus on this very complex issue of different environmental resources that are connected to each other. And we try to understand that and then based on that, improve processes or the management of these resources. And this complexity that we have there reminded me of the complexity of educational systems. There are so many disciplines, there are so many countries, every country has their own history of education systems, of universities, of challenges. Bring into that the institutional challenges, the international institutions that are now challenged, the funding that's a problem everywhere. But I want to say also about the funding, yes, it's true. But there also, I think this global conversation and the global community and the student leadership is much more powerful than just the funding. I'm not negating that you need funding for certain things, but remember that by standing together and by having this conversation and by taking education forward and changing it, you can make a difference. And that's really important going forward. Thanks, Edward.
Thank you so much, Serena, and for succeeding in bringing together so many of the themes that came up. And as you said, that notion around peace, around the environment, around well-being are so complementary and so key in this journey. I just invite participants as well to take a moment, a minute or so, to explore everything that's happening in the chat, because there are so many insights being shared. Thank you, Claude, speaking on the importance of mentorship, which I know spreads across our different initiatives. We also have reference as well to the education crises happening in Palestine, in Afghanistan. And on that note, I'd particularly recommend and will share one of our Design Challenge finalists from the past year, Aman Shah, was recognised for his initiative on Afghan Girls Success Gate, so training for Afghan girls essentially underground to give access to education that is being removed. So there is so much that is happening from the youth in our communities around the world, and I'm no doubt that in Global Student Forum as well, I think that's so much that unites us, is trying to give that voice and recognise that in all the crisis, polycrisis, I know that Apita, you mentioned there is real hope through the energy and the real impact coming from youth-led initiatives. So I really encourage you, before you leave today, to explore through everything that's being shared, and we'll try to share all those initiatives in the sum up as well. But it takes us to the final part of the session, which is looking forward on this partnership. So we will close the session really with the signing of an MOU between GSF and Francois and LPI that is our shared commitment on the future of learning with youth. So you can see it there on the screen. But just before we do, a final word, Jacob and Francois, if I may, what excites you looking forward on this partnership of what we're exploring together? Who would like to go first on that?
What excites me?
Indeed.
Like, it is that we have an enormous challenge ahead of us, but that it is possible. I think we spend so much time right now freaking out about how much we need to do, but like it's very clear that there is some things that are working, and we just need to do more of that. So that is what excites me.
Yeah, and what excites me is doing it together, because I think that each one of us alone doesn't have any chance of having the impact that is needed. But I think that coming together, we have much more chance of having the impact that is needed. There is this German poet quote, Hölderlin says, "Where danger grows, what saves also grows." And I think coming together is what can also save. And that's again, those challenges are huge, and those crises are strong. The Chinese say that the word crisis is written with two characters, dangers and opportunities. So we all know about the danger, but I think we should talk about the opportunity. And there's an opportunity for giving students voice and co-designing with them to make the impact that they need to have. I just made a little calculation this morning, waking up thinking about the International Day of Education. I think that collectively students around the world, spend something like more than 1 trillion hours in school or university altogether. And most of it is in this competition that's for grades and stuff that are already in ChatGPT. So I think if we were to upcycle that 1 trillion hours and mobilize it for good, to be the best for the world rather than trying to be best in the world and be outcompeted by a machine, I think we could make a real difference. So that's what excites me, mobilizing that 1 trillion hours of students' engagement for the planet and for the future.
I'm in on that one too.
Thank you so much to both of you. And so what I suggest is while you actually do sign this document together, I'm going to propose that while you do that, that the rest of us, we mark the moment. If you would like to be part of a photo, I'm going to be taking a few photos while Francois and Jacob focus on signing. And so if you would like to be part of the photo as part of this occasion, this moment, then do turn on your camera, and I will take a few of these because there are so many of us in the call, and I'll do a particular one as well for those in person at LPI. We'll make your screen a little bit bigger too so that we can see you. So 3, 2, 1 for the first one. Thank you, thanks IKEA for doing that. And then for the second one, 3, 2, 1. And then we'll go to the next screen, 3, 2, 1. And then we will go, as they're almost finished signing, we'll do one final one with as many as I can fit onto my screen. 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. I don't have the time to get party music up on Spotify to celebrate this, but I hope everybody will put emojis or applauding or whatever it might be as we're excited to work together. Thank you everyone on this initiative together, but we only exist because of the communities that are part of us. So thank you so much to all of you for joining this session today, for being part of this journey. I see lots of questions as well in the chat too of how can I be part of more initiatives like this. We'll be continuing to share updates along the way, a summary of what's been happening over such a rich week. I see festival organisers here as well who've been such a part of the journey too. And so we'll try to give you a picture of what we're working on together. But in the meantime, I hope you have a brilliant rest of the International Day of Education. Thank you so much to our speakers and to all of you for taking the time to join. And here's the best towards the future of learning with youth. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Edward.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
for your love.
Thank you, everybody.